AWS CloudWatch is a monitoring and management service that provides data and insights for your AWS services and even external ones as well. You can collect performance information and operational data using logs and metrics. This can be things like CPU usage, memory usage, network data, and a whole load of diagnostic information as well. You can then set up alarms based on various different variables, allowing you to be alerted or to even run automated actions based on the insights that you've been given. You can even monitor the uptime of various sites or API endpoints as well. Let's look at the setup of some of the most common use cases. That's going to be logs for Lambda functions, database logs via RDS, EC2 metrics, and even logs created from the programs you're running on the EC2 instance. And lastly, API gateways. We're also going to look at how we can monitor uptime and set up alarms to alert us when things may go wrong. Stay for the end of the video too, as I'll be showing you a way to send your logs to a third-party platform so you can correlate your telemetry across a load of different platforms and take advantage of a more modern, easy to understand interface. But before we jump into that, if you like programming tutorials like these, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like a newsletter about building and scaling software from the team here at BetterStack, go ahead and sign up for the Hacking Scale newsletter. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. But now let's jump into AWS CloudWatch. Let's start with a quick tour of the CloudWatch console and some of the things we'll be configuring today. First, I'm going to look at logs and then log groups here, and you'll see I have a few set up. Now, a log group is just going to be a group of log streams that share similar settings such as retention, monitoring, and access control. And if I click into one of these, we'll see it has a log stream in here, and you could have as many log streams as you like in one of these log groups. A log group you can essentially think of like a folder. Now, a log stream is just going to be each separate source of logs. So you can see here for my RDS database error log here, I have one log stream, and that's just the one instance that I have set up, and that's going to be the error log for that instance. If I had another database instance, it would be another log stream, and then we could also put that in this same group though. Now, once we do have our groups configured and our log streams in them, we can then view the live tail. We go to live tail here, you see I have various filtering options, and if I select one of these filtering options, say I only want to see the logs for this log group here, we can click apply filters here. Once we've done that, it's going to wait for the log events that match the filters, and we'll get a near real-time view of the logs that are coming into our application or our various different log streams. And you can come in here and expand some of these and see the various different requests that were made and just all of the information about the logs. Once we're here as well, you can also highlight some terms so you can see them at a quick glance as they're coming through. And you can even do some advanced filtering. As you saw, we had the log group, but we can filter by the log streams that are within there. And then we can also filter via log events. And if we click info here, you can see we can find all of the error ones by just typing in error there. And we have a few different syntax that we can use to find our logs really quickly. We can match multiple terms here, and then we can even match terms for JSON log events using this format down here. So you have a bunch of tools to be able to find the log that you're trying to look for to help you in your debugging process. Now, the next important part of CloudWatch is going to be the metrics. So if we click up here and then we go to metrics, we can go to all metrics. Once you do that, you should get a graph view similar to this. And you can see here we have some namespaces. Now, a lot of these are configured by default by AWS so that it streams in the metrics for you and you don't have to do any setup. So if I look here, I can take a look at some of my EC2 metrics. So if I click in here, I can then click per instance metrics to view the metrics for each instance of EC2 that I have set up. And you can see here we have some various different metric names, and I can tick some of these to add them to the graph. So you can see I've got my network out, and then we can also view things like the CPU utilization, the disk write, and various different things, and you can tick them here and you can see on the graph here. Now, coming into this section and ticking each one you want to see each time may be a little bit tedious if you just want to see the performance of your application at an overview, and this is where we can utilize the CloudWatch dashboards, and these are essentially just customizable home pages in this CloudWatch console that allow you to view everything in a nice single view at a quick glance. So we scroll back up to the top here and we go to dashboards. You'll see you can set up a custom dashboard, so you could select your own metrics and graphs that you want to see at a quick glance. So once you sort of know what you want to look for, you could create your own custom one. But we also have these automatic dashboards as well provided by AWS. And we can see if I go into here and then I click on EC2, for example, like the metrics we were looking at before, you can see we get all of the metrics that we were just looking at when we ticked them in that separate graph there. But you can see we can get them in a nice view here and just we can see all of them at a nice quick glance. So we could find out what's going wrong with our application or just the general status of our services really easily and quickly with dashboards. And as I said, you can configure a custom one as well to make sure you're getting the metrics that you care about each time and that you can view them really quickly. The next part of CloudWatch that is actually linked to metrics is you'll see here I have something like CPU utilization. We can actually set up some alarms. So alarms are going to perform some actions based on the value of a metric or expression relative to a threshold that you may set up. So for example, with CPU utilization here, maybe I want to know if this goes above something like 50%. To do that, what we can do is we can go to all alarms here and you can click create alarm. Now you'll see I already have one set up. So if I go in here, what you can see is we have this red line, which is going to be my alarm line. And at the moment I have this set up at 50%. Then we can also see my current CPU utilization. And you can see that each time it's given that a check. And you can also see with this green bit down here that it was okay. If we did go above 50%, we would go into alarm. And you can also see there is various actions that it's going to take. So in my case, it's going to send off some notifications. But you can actually set up the actions to perform various different things like Lambda functions or even restart the instances. And there's just a load of cool things that you configure. But also with those notifications there, it means that I'm going to get an email if it does go above that, so that I can also come in here and investigate immediately when that starts to happen. And the last part of CloudWatch that I want to show you there related to this monitoring is going to be the synthetic canaries. So if we scroll down and go to application signals, you can click on synthetic canaries here and you see that I've got one set up currently. Now synthetic canaries allow you to create scripts to monitor your website and your endpoints and your various different APIs. Generally, the goal is that you want to create them to follow the same routes that a customer would. So hopefully they pick up if the API or endpoints are down before your customer does. You can see here that I have one set up for the BetterStack website, and what you can see is at the moment it's passing and it checks it every 5 minutes to see if the website returns a successful OK request. Now with that really quick overview of the CloudWatch console there, let's take a look at some of the additional configuration that we may need to do on some of our services to be able to view the logs and get various different log streams into the CloudWatch console. Now, the first one we're going to be taking a look at is our EC2 instances. Now, by default, AWS is going to set up the metrics for you, but what we can do is we can send our own custom log files to CloudWatch. So if, say, you have your own application running on your instance, you can send the log files for that application to a CloudWatch log group, so you can actually view them in there. So to do that, we need to configure some permissions by creating a role in IAM. So to do that, come up here and type in IAM. If we go to IAM here, we can go down to roles. Once we're in role, we can click create role, AWS service, and the use case here is going to be EC2. Once we've done that, we can select next, and we need to add one permission policy, and that's going to be CloudWatch agent, and then it's going to be CloudWatch agent server policy here. We can go ahead and tick this and then click next, and you give this a role name. I'm just going to call this EC2 CloudWatch like so, and then we can scroll down and we can click create role. Now, once you've created this role, you need to go ahead and add it to your EC2 instance. For me, I actually need to launch a new instance, and I'll show you where the setting for that is. But if you already have an instance up and running, you can click modify and you can change the setting in the exact same place. So if you're setting up a new instance, once you're on this launch an instance page, or if you've clicked modify, you need to go ahead and find the setting that says advanced details here. And you'll see we have this IAM instance profile. And now I can select this EC2 CloudWatch permissions one that we just set up. Once I've done that, we can go ahead and click modify or create our instance. The next thing we need to do is connect to our EC2 instance. So you can go ahead and select this here, click connect, and then we can just connect down here and we need to go to the command line. Once you're on the command line, we need to install the CloudWatch agent. So for me, that's going to be sudo yum install amazon-cloudwatch-agent like so. And we go ahead and click enter here. And then we can also accept this there. Now, once that's installed, the next important step is just to know where the log file is that you want to send to CloudWatch. For my case, that's going to be in this file here, and I want to send the index-out.log file. So I'm just going to print this working directory quickly so we can see that. I'm also going to copy and paste this if we need to save this for later. Our next step is going to be to run the CloudWatch config wizard. Now, for me, that's going to be this command here, and I'll leave a link in the description down below for where you can copy and paste this command, but also you can pause the screen and copy this one down as well. Once you do that, it's going to ask you a load of questions to set up our CloudWatch agent. I'm going to point out the important ones, but for this one, we can leave it as default. Again, default. And then for this one, it's quite important. We need to select root on this one. We don't want to run the statsd daemon, and we don't want to run the collectd. So again, we need to ignore the default there and select 2 for both of them. For the next ones, we can essentially run through the defaults by pressing enter here until you get to this screen here where it says, are you satisfied with the above config? We can go ahead and select yes. We can select no for this question about the CloudWatch log agent. But then it says, do you want to monitor any log files? This is where we need to select yes, and you need to type in the path that we saved earlier. And I'm also going to add that it was the index-out.log file like so, and we can go ahead and click enter. And then you can see here, it's also going to ask for your log group name. This is where you can configure what log group you want it in, but I'm just going to leave it as that folder name by default. And again, all of these I'm going to leave on the default here. And then it's going to ask you again, do you want any additional log files to monitor? If you do have more, you can go ahead and add them here. I'm going to go ahead and select no. And then it's going to ask, do you want the CloudWatch agent to also receive X-ray traces? I'm just going to hit yes on this. Then we'll go ahead and just go through the defaults for this. And then you can just go through all of the defaults, and then you should get to a file where it says, do you want to save this in the SSM parameter store? I'm going to go ahead and select no for this. And then you go, it says the program exits now, and we're ready to start up the CloudWatch agent. So to start up the CloudWatch agent, we need to paste in this command here. And you also want to make note of this -c here and where it says file. And it's going to say for me /opt/AWS Amazon CloudWatch agent bin config.json. You want to make sure that it matches this path that we had up here. And again, I'll leave a link in the description down below for where we can find all of these commands. But once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now that I've hit enter, you're going to see this is going to start up, and you'll see that it has the cloud agent has already been stopped. I'm going to go ahead and start this up again if it says that, as sometimes it shuts it down and then the next time you need it to start up there. But once that's done, we can also run a command to check the status. So if we paste in this command here, you'll see that this one is going to check the status there, and I'm going to get out that the status is now running, so I can head back to the CloudWatch dashboard. So back in the CloudWatch dashboard now, what you can see is I've now got my log group that we set up earlier for that index out-log file, which is my own custom node applications log file. And you can see there, we've got that instance down here for the log stream. And if I go ahead and start tailing this, we would get in the log events for my application as it comes through. And there we go. As you can see, once I started making some requests to the custom application that I had running, we're getting the custom log file coming out here. And we can see all of the logs that were in that log file being streamed in to CloudWatch here. Now, as I said earlier as well, that's just for your custom log files for different applications you may be running on your instance. But also with the metrics, they should be set up by default. So now if you go to dashboard and then automatic dashboard and EC2, you should start to see that we have my new instance here. And this was the old one. And this is the one that I just created. And you can see the metrics are already in here in AWS as that's been set up for us. Now, the next one we're going to look at is our Lambda functions and our API gateway, as I have an application which uses both. Now, the first thing you're going to notice for Lambda functions is it's going to automatically create your log group for you. So if I go in here and I click start tailing, this is automatically just all set up with AWS there. So you can see all of the requests coming in and the various different logs for my AWS. And the same is going to go for the metrics as well. If we go to dashboards, automatic dashboards, and Lambda, again, all of this is set up automatically for you out of the box, which is really nice. But for API Gateway, we need to configure a few things if we want to see our API Gateway logs in CloudWatch. The first thing we need to do is actually create a log group for all of these logs to go to for our API Gateway. So for that, all I'm going to do is come in here and I'm just going to give this a name of, let's say, API Gateway like so. You can give this a more applicable name to the application that you're using. And we can go ahead and click create here. And once we've done that, all you're going to need to do is keep a note of this ARN here and just click copy and save that somewhere, or just save this page and we can come back to this later. Our next step though is going to be create a custom role. So for this, I need to go to IAM like so. We need to scroll down to where it has our roles, click roles, and then we're going to go create role. And then we're going to do AWS service. And then inside of here, we'll do API gateway. So API gateway like so, click next. Then you're going to want to add in this permission policy. And it's actually the only one that can be applied. And that's going to be Amazon API gateway push to CloudWatch logs. We'll click next for that. And then again, you can give this a name. So for me, I'm just going to call that API gateway. And then let's say CloudWatch like so. And then we can go ahead and create our role. Once our role is created, we can now go back to API Gateway. Once we're on API Gateway, find the one that you want to add your logs for. So this one is going to be my Node.js API Gateway here. And we can scroll down to where it says settings. Once we're in settings, we can click edit, and it's going to ask for the CloudWatch log role ARN. Now, what we need to do for that is copy over the ARN from the role that we just created. So to get that, all you need to do is go back to the IAM portal, click on your API Gateway CloudWatch, and just copy this ARN there. And then we can go ahead and head back to our other page, which had that edit logging settings, and we can go ahead and paste that in. And then click Save Changes. Now, once that's done, the next step is going to be to go to where we have our stages. So if we go back to our APIs, go back into your Node.js API Gateway and click Stages here. Once you've clicked Stages here, we can scroll down and we can see a section that says Logs and Tracing. If you click Edit on here, Once on this page, we can select our CloudWatch logs. So the first one we're going to enable is what we want to log. So we can have errors only, errors and info logs, and full request and response logs. I'm going to select full request and response logs. And then you can also enable custom access logging down here. And you'll see in this access log ARM, this is where we need to paste in our CloudWatch log group. So if you remember from earlier, I told you to note down this ARN. So for this, we can go ahead and click copy. And then back in this ARN here, we can go ahead and paste this in. But it's quite important, you need to get rid of this asterisk and this colon here. And once we've done that, we can have a log format as well. If you click learn more here, you're actually going to get some of the standard log formats that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and use this one here, and this is just a generic one that they provide. And once we copy that, we can go ahead and paste that in. So this is just going to be a nice log format for us to send to our log group. Once all of this is done, we can go ahead and click save. Now our logs should be coming out into CloudWatch. Now, with all of that done, back in CloudWatch log groups here, you'll see that we have a few new log groups created. We have this API Gateway Welcome one, we have the Gateway Execution logs, and then we also have the one that we created here, and that's going to be for our custom access logging. So if I go to LiveTail now, and let's say I select a few of these, like the API Gateway one, the Gateway Execution, and the API Gateway, we should see our logs start to come through as I click Start here, and we start making some GET requests to my call. So there we go. Once I start making some requests to my API gateway here, you see that we get a live tail of all of my logs here coming through, and you see all of the various requests. And then we could add in some filters. We could even set up some metrics based on all of these API requests, and just do a load of powerful stuff with CloudWatch to help us debug and just keep an eye on our application. Now, the last AWS service that I want to show you quickly how to add your CloudWatch logs in is going to be RDS, so for your relational databases. Now, for that, if you do have any created, you may notice we already have the RDSOS metrics log group here. This one, again, is created by default by AWS, and you get a bit of information from here. And again, all of the metric dashboards are created by default by AWS. So we can actually configure more logs than this. We can get the error log, slow query log, and a few more things based on whichever setup you have for your relational database. To do that, what we need to do is come up here and go to RDS. We click into RDS and then DB instances. If you go ahead and tick your instance or the database that you want to modify, we're going to go ahead and click modify here. Once the modify screen loads, all you have to do is scroll down a bit and you should see a setting that says additional configuration here, and you'll get log exports, and it says select the log types to publish to Amazon CloudWatch logs. We can turn on the audit log, the error log, the general log, the slow query log, and with all of that done, we can click continue and we can click modify cluster. That's going to go ahead and make some changes, and after a while, you should see the log groups are going to automatically appear in CloudWatch. So with all of that done for RDS, you can come to your log groups and you should see some new ones will be created. Now, I actually had to restart my RDS because obviously we need to generate the error logs, which does have some information about startup and shutdown in there. But you see, once we do get some information in our error log, it goes ahead and creates a log group for us, and it creates one for our RDS database one and error there. And as I said, if you had multiple instances on this database, it would put all of your error logs into this same log group here, and it would just be a different log stream. You can go ahead and start tailing this, and as we start it up on my RDS or shut it down, we would see the information come in from that error log into here. So now that we have everything configured and all of our logs and metrics coming through to CloudWatch, let's go ahead and set up an alarm to see how that works. So to do that, all we need to do is come here and click all alarms. If we click create alarm here, we can then select a metric. And you can go ahead and select which one you want from your namespaces. So for me, I'm going to set one up on my EC2. If I go to EC2, I can then do per instance metrics. And then I can also scroll down and find the one that I'm concerned with. And for me, that's going to be CPU utilization here. So I'm going to go ahead and tick that and click select metric. And you see we get a graph of what the metrics are currently like. So at the moment, my CPU usage is at 1.7%. And you can see we can get a statistic, which is going to be the average in my case. And you can have various different things you can select here. We have that metric name as well. And you see we can set up the detection and conditions as well. So for this, I'm going to select a static one, but you can also select anomaly detection. Essentially what this is going to do is going to try work out sort of the average amount of your CPU utilization. And if it goes too far out of what is considered the norm, it's going to alert you. But for me, I'm just going to set up a static threshold, and that's going to be for when CPU utilization is above 50%, like so. You can go ahead and click next. Now, next, it's going to ask us to set up our notifications, and we're going to have the choice for the alarm state trigger here. So one of these is going to be a notification for when it goes into alarm. So that's going to be if it goes above 50% CPU utilization. And the other one's going to be for when it goes back down to okay. You can set up different notifications based on that. And what you can see is we can select an SNS topic here, which is the simple notification service. This is what's going to allow you to be able to email yourself or do loads of other things. But for me, I'm going to select create new topic, and let's just call this one email. And in here, you can type in the email that you want to be notified once it goes over that threshold. So for me, I could put something like james@example.com. And again, as I said, this is going to trigger when the CPU utilization goes above 50. We can click create topic here. That's going to go ahead and create it. It's worth noting for email ones, you do need to go ahead and confirm your email. So that's going to notify me if our CPU utilization goes above 50% or if our alarm sets off there. But you can also set up some Lambda actions here. You could set up some auto scaling actions. So maybe if we do go above 50%, start up another one. And you can add your EC2 actions as well. Maybe I need to restart it if it goes above that. And just a load of other cool options. We're going to go ahead and click next here and you can give it an alarm name. And I'm just going to call that one, let's say CPU util, like so. We're going to click next. You see, you're going to get a graph here, and that's just going to show you what you're currently at. And then you're also going to have this red line now for where the alarm is going to be set off. We can go ahead and click create alarm here. You can see for a bit, it's going to be insufficient data, but then as it sort of collects it, it's going to go back to just saying okay if it is okay. And then you'll also get an alarm if it goes over. And there you go. Once the data starts loading, you'll see that the state is okay there. And if you click on our alert here, you'll see this nice green bar here. And that's just going to mean that it's okay. Obviously, the gray here was the insufficient data. What I'm going to go ahead and do now, though, is quickly click edit here. And if we go to edit and I go down to where my threshold is, if I just set this to 0 so we can see what happens when an alarm is triggered, as obviously it's always going to be above 0 here. If I click next and then I click update alarm here, what we should see in a bit is once it gets its data point, that this is going to go into alarm. And we'd also get an email or any notification that we set up, and it would also trigger any of those things that you may have set up, like a Lambda function or restarting an EC2 instance. And it's also going to go to this section here which says in alarm, which allows you to quickly view all of the alarms that you have that are actually currently in alarm compared to just being okay. And there we go, you can see that we're in the red status here as we are now in alarm. You can see if I click here, it says we're in alarm, so we can go ahead and look into why that's happening. And as I said, you'll also get an email or various other notifications that you set up from this. So changing that back there to 50 so we're not in alarm anymore, I want to take a look at synthetic canaries now. So to go to them, all we have to do is go down to application signals here and click in synthetics canaries like so. Once we're here, we can go ahead and create a canary. Now, as I said, the canaries are essentially what's going to monitor your website for uptime or your API endpoints based on any sort of custom script that you give it. Now, we can give it a canary name. This has to be all lowercase, but I'm going to call this one BetterStack. And it's going to say application or endpoint URL. This is where you can paste in your API endpoint. For me, I'm just going to be monitoring a website here. So I'm going to paste in the BetterStack URL. As you can see, you can actually get it to take screenshots on each canary run like so. So you could tick that or untick that. And you can see also we have the script editor. So this script here is just going to be the default one. You can see it's just going to go to the URL, take a screenshot, and essentially it's just going to check for if we get sort of a 200 request and see how that goes. Once we've done all of this though, you can set it to run continuously or set a custom schedule with a cron schedule, or you can do a run once, and you can also get it to start immediately after creation. Once we've done all of this, I'm just going to go ahead and click create canary here. And you can see it's going to take up to a minute, but once that's done, it's going to start monitoring our website to make sure that it's always up. And if it wasn't up, we could go ahead and configure some custom notifications for that. And there you go with that setup. What you can see is if we click into my BetterStack Canary here, what you can see is it's got the last run as passed, as it's been to the website, and it says it's got 100% availability. So this is how you can really quickly find out whether your website has gone down or your various different API endpoints, and hopefully catch it and fix it before any customers are affected, or at least keep the impact down to a minimum. So now you've seen a brief overview of how CloudWatch works and how we can configure some of its various features, as well as setting up the different log groups. I want to show you how we could integrate this with BetterStack. Now, as I said at the start of the video, if you go to BetterStack, you're going to benefit from more modern interfaces and just a better ease of use and more cost effective. As we scroll down here, you can see the various features. We can log everything, troubleshoot everything. We can visualize all of our entire stack, similar to how we could set up some CloudWatch metrics based on our logs. We can aggregate all of our logs into structured data and query everything like a single database with SQL. And we also have the uptime management as well, which can do that website monitoring similar to the Canaries. And we can also actually monitor our alarms from AWS as well, and we can even import our CloudWatch logs too. That means if you're already using CloudWatch for everything and you've aggregated all of your logs there, you can really easily get started with BetterStack and see what it has to offer. To get started, you're going to want to sign up for a free account. I'm going to go ahead and sign in as I already have an account. Now, once you've signed up and signed in, you should see something that looks like this. The first thing that I want to set up is monitoring our AWS CloudWatch alarms so we can get some incident reports in BetterStack here. To do that, all we need to do is go to Uptime up here, and we can go Uptime, and then we can click Integrations. Once you click Integrations, we're going to click Importing Data here, and you can see we have an AWS CloudWatch option. We go ahead and click Add here. You can go ahead and give this a name, so I'm just going to call this one Alarms. Then I'm going to click Continue. Once we've done this, what you're going to see is we're going to get our setup instructions here, and it's going to take around 6 minutes. So back on AWS here, the first thing I need to do is go to SNS, the simple notification service, and you can see we need to create a topic. So for the topic here, I'm going to call it what we had here, which was Better Uptime CloudWatch topic. We're going to go to the next step here, and we're going to scroll down, and we're just going to hit create topic down here. Next, what we need to do is we need to set up our subscriptions. So if we go to subscriptions here, we need to go ahead and click create subscription. And for the topic, we're going to select the one that we just created. So Better Uptime CloudWatch topic. For the protocol, we're going to go ahead and select HTTPS. And then once we're here, we're going to go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see this CloudWatch webhook URL. If you copy this to the clipboard and paste this into where the endpoint is, we can go ahead and then just save this now as our new subscription. Once we've clicked create subscription here, we can now go back to our CloudWatch service. So if we now type in CloudWatch, like so, then we go to alarms. And then once you're on an alarm, you can find an alarm that you want to configure to be able to send over to our incidents in BetterStack. And we can click actions and then edit. Once we're in the settings here, all we need to do is go to the next page where we configure our actions. And you can see it has the configure actions here, and we need our notifications. Now we need to set up 2 of them, one for in alarm and one for OK. Now, obviously, if you set up the email one before, you can go ahead and add a new one down here by clicking add notification. I'm going to go ahead and remove this email one, and I'm just going to select the Better Uptime CloudWatch topic like so. And that's going to be for in alarm there. And then the other one for this alarm state trigger, I need to select OK. And then again, I need to select that Better Uptime CloudWatch topic like so. Once all of that's done, I can go ahead and click next, and then we can go ahead and update the alarm. Now back on the BetterStack integration, as you can see, we have that webhook URL. You can also configure your on-call escalation here, so you can see what happens when an incident occurs. So you can get an email, you can get SMS, you can get a call, you can get a push notification to various services if you configure that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make it send an email again. Once we've done all of this though, we can click save changes, and you can go and click incidents. Once you're in here, you may see that there's no alarms yet, and that's because nothing has gone off on the AWS dashboard. So if I go ahead and force something to go off, we should see it in the BetterStack dashboard. And there we go. I've gone ahead and forced an AWS CloudWatch alarm by just setting this back down to 0. And you can see we've got the incident over here in BetterStack. And I got an email sent to me as well, alerting me of this. You go ahead and click in here, and you can see the cause as well, which is our threshold was crossed. So our CPU utilization was greater than our 0 here because we had 1% utilization. So there we go. Now that our incident is in BetterStack, we can go ahead and take advantage of some of the cool features of BetterStack, such as someone could acknowledge this just to say that you're taking care of it so it doesn't escalate it any further. But you could also escalate this as well to notify more people if you need a bit of help. So now that we've seen how to integrate our alarms into BetterStack, let's take a look at how we can get our logs into BetterStack as well. So for log forwarding, our first step is going to be to log into BetterStack again. And now we need to go to logs and then sources. We need to click connect source. And then for this, you're just going to give this a name. I'm going to give this a name of AWS CloudWatch like so. And then for platform, you can go ahead and select CloudWatch as the platform. We can click create source here. Once you've clicked this, you should get a source token here. Go ahead and note this one down for later so you can copy this somewhere or just leave this web page open. The next thing we need to do is head back to AWS, and again, I'll leave this documentation in the description down below. But now what we need to do is we need to create a function. So if I go to Lambda and click here, we can go ahead and now create a new function. We'll go ahead and give this the function name of Logtail AWS Lambda like so. We'll do this from scratch. You're going to want to select Node.js 18 as it says there. And then we also want to make sure it's on that x86_64 architecture. We can go ahead and now click create function. Once that is done, you should get a page similar to this. Now what we can do is go to code source. You can scroll down here and click download Logtail AWS Lambda.zip. And we can go ahead and click upload and then from .zip file, and then you can select what you've just downloaded. So now that you've selected that zip, you can go ahead and click save, and that's going to set up the Lambda for you. But what we do need to do is configure the environment variable for our source token. So you can see down here, we need to go to the configuration tab. So we go configuration here, environment variables, and then we need to create a new environment variable. So we can click edit down here, add environment variable. Then we need to give this the key of BetterStack_source_token like so. We'll copy that in and paste that in. And this is where you want to put your source token. So once we've gone ahead and entered that, we can go ahead and click save. And we have now configured the Lambda, which is going to forward our CloudWatch logs to BetterStack. But what we need to do is select the log groups that we want this to apply to. So to do this, all we need to do is go back to CloudWatch. On CloudWatch, we can go to our log groups. And once our log groups are loaded, you can select whichever one you want to forward your logs to. So let's say I wanted to forward the logs for my Lambda function here. I can click this. We can go actions. subscription filters, and then create Lambda subscription filter. It's going to ask you what Lambda function you want, and you're going to want to select the Logtail AWS Lambda one that we just created. It's also going to ask you for the log format. For this, what we need to do is select JSON, and then you're also going to add this subscription filter name of Logtail AWS Lambda and then filter, like so. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and save this. And there we go, our logs should now be being forwarded to BetterStack. So back on the BetterStack dashboard now, all you need to do is go to Livetail and then select this source that we just set up, so the AWS CloudWatch one. And what you can see is I've already got some of my logs coming through and they're being forwarded there from CloudWatch. And you see that we have all of the same information, but we have a much nicer UI in here and we can do some much more advanced features, such as we can select different things, we can add them to the query, we can search our logs, and we can also set up our own custom dashboard similar to how you could in AWS CloudWatch as well. So there we go. Hopefully you understand a little bit more about CloudWatch now and how to configure it for your various different services, as well as utilize things like alarms and canaries. You also saw at the end there BetterStack, which is a better alternative with more modern, easier to understand interfaces and more cost effective, and just how easily it is to go from CloudWatch to BetterStack. If you want to see more ways to ship your logs, go ahead and watch this video on Vector. Otherwise, check out this video YouTube thinks you'll like. And as always, please subscribe and thank you for watching.